When are you going to learn, man, that it is completely inappropriate and unacceptable, and the king simply will not have it, and the royal family simply will not have it, with you calling up trashy reporters at trashy mainstream media publications to try and force them into doing something they don't want to do?
It's just a broken man, Dan. He is broken in a big way. And I feel sorry for those children. I really do, because they're the ones who are going to be the ones losing out.
Prince Harry reportedly told his father, King Charles, who is undergoing cancer treatment, that without taxpayer-funded armed security, he would not bring the children to the United Kingdom for a visit. The reported response from the king was strikingly simple: nothing at all. No argument, no compromise, no public comment, no quiet message passed through royal insiders, and no friendly briefing to the press. Just silence. And in a family where every word, gesture, and royal signal is usually picked apart for meaning, that silence hit hard. At this point in the king's health journey, many observers see it as one of the clearest responses he could have given. It appeared to show exactly how the palace chose to handle this particular pressure point, and that reaction speaks volumes about how the message was received. Tonight, we're looking at what was reportedly said, why the wording sparked such a strong reaction, and why this security dispute can look completely different, depending on how you view it. Is it a practical travel and safety issue, or does it come across as a negotiating position?
Now 100% trapped. I mean, he talked about it on that TV show, that he's the one that can't get away because now she rules the roost, she's cut him off from the family.
We'll also examine what the Balmoral situation reveals about the options that may already be available behind the scenes, and why the timing adds a whole different layer to the story. King Charles is dealing with a cancer diagnosis that is not in remission. The grandchildren are 7 and 5. The distance between those two realities is what has many people talking, because that gap is where the real drama and emotion of this story seem to sit. According to reports that gained major attention, Prince Harry reportedly told his father that without suitable security arrangements, he would travel to the United Kingdom on his own, rather than bringing Archie and Lilibet. The way the message was presented sounded practical and focused on safety. The argument was straightforward. Without the level of security he believes is necessary, the children would not make the trip. Harry's reported position was that he would not expose them to what he sees as an unacceptable risk by travelling without adequate protection.
She's got no family. She's got the friend. She's got Marcus Anderson. He's a fun person, and he will fill her in with the gossip and all of that sort of stuff. But, you know, Harry to her, a means to an end.
On its own, that stance is not unusual. Parents make safety decisions for their children all the time, and many people would view that as a reasonable concern. But this situation becomes far more complicated once the broader history is taken into account. If the disagreement was simply about travel arrangements for one visit, it could be seen as a routine discussion between two sides trying to reach an agreement. The challenge is that this issue comes with years of baggage, public debate, and ongoing scrutiny. Harry's dispute over security did not suddenly appear because of one planned family visit. It has been a long-running and highly publicized disagreement that has played out through legal battles, official decisions, public comments, and endless media coverage. Court cases have been argued, rulings have been made, and the debate has remained in the spotlight for years. Throughout all of this, the palace has consistently maintained that security arrangements changed after Harry stepped away from official royal duties. Their position has been that these decisions follow established procedures and are not based on personal requests or individual preferences.
Why is Harry making like all these games around his children, trying to be this, man that gets what he wants all the time, and using your children to do it? It's so wrong and disgusting. I don't even know.
Because of that, any reported link between the children's visits and the security dispute places two sensitive issues side by side that palace officials have repeatedly treated as separate matters, which is why the reaction was so intense and closely watched. On one side of this debate are family relationships. On the other side are institutional policies surrounding security. Bringing those two issues together is exactly where the tension explodes. From the palace's perspective, combining a personal family matter with an official security dispute creates a difficult situation because it turns a policy question into an emotional one. The challenge for the institution is obvious. If family access becomes tied to the outcome of a security disagreement, any response carries risks. Agreeing could be seen as giving ground under pressure, while refusing could leave the institution looking distant or unsympathetic. That is why palace officials have generally treated these matters as separate tracks throughout the dispute. The underlying message some observers saw in the reported exchange was that resolving the security issue was necessary before the wider family relationship could properly function. And because the king is often viewed as the central figure in that conversation, attention naturally shifted toward him and how he would react. Some critics took that interpretation even further. While no report claimed anyone literally said, "Pay up, or you will go to your grave without having known your own grandchildren," commentators used that phrase to describe what they believed was the implication behind the reported common position. Whether that interpretation is fair remains open to debate.
Because Prince Harry is due in the country next month, he still has no confirmation from the Home Office that he's going to get the taxpayer-funded security. Good!
No one outside the private conversations can know the exact intent behind the message, and that uncertainty is important to remember. What is easier to assess is the king's response, or lack of one. Instead of engaging publicly, offering a rebuttal, or signaling a compromise, Charles reportedly remained silent. That silence became a major part of the story all by itself. Charles has access to experienced advisors, communications staff, trusted intermediaries, and long-established private channels designed for sensitive family matters exactly like this. There were several possible ways to respond without creating a public spectacle. A counter-proposal could have been floated behind the scenes. A private conversation could have been encouraged through a trusted go-between. Even a small signal of flexibility might have changed the tone of the discussion. Instead, the silence remained. And for many royal watchers who have followed Charles for decades, that was not viewed as an accident. They saw it as a deliberate choice, both strategic and deeply personal, which only added another layer of intrigue to an already closely watched family dispute. Remaining silent under this level of public pressure is often the more difficult path to take. When someone stays quiet, they give up the chance to immediately shape the narrative and instead allow commentators, critics, and supporters to fill in the gaps themselves. Choosing that route suggests that responding directly may have carried a higher cost than simply absorbing the headlines and letting the story run its course. For King Charles, publicly engaging with a position that appears to connect family access with security arrangements would place him in a complicated spot. If he appeared to give in, some could argue it would create the impression that institutional decisions can be influenced through family pressure. That is the kind of precedent many within royal circles are believed to be uncomfortable with, especially when it comes to long-standing policies and procedures. On the other hand, publicly rejecting such a position could create a completely different wave of criticism, with attention shifting toward the emotional side of the story and questions about family relationships. Either route risks generating intense headlines and fresh controversy. Silence, at least for now, avoids choosing between those two difficult outcomes. Of course, silence does not solve the dispute. It does not move the issue forward, and it does not bring the two sides closer together. It simply leaves the situation exactly where it is, with all sides holding their positions while public speculation continues to grow. Now, let's turn to the Balmoral discussion, because royal commentators have repeatedly pointed to it as an important part of this debate. The reason is simple. It changes the focus from emotion to practicality and raises questions about what options may already exist behind the scenes. The argument often raised is that Harry has shown many times in recent years that international travel can be arranged when it is considered a priority. He has traveled to various countries, including locations that presented significant security considerations.
He still has no confirmation from King Charles that Harry will meet him. Good, because remember, what remains so central to all of this is the threat.
Without those trips being abandoned because of logistical challenges. Supporters of this view argue that these examples demonstrate that complex travel plans can be managed successfully with the right preparation. That leads to a question that keeps resurfacing among royal observers. Is the United Kingdom uniquely difficult from a security standpoint for a former senior royal using private protection, or has the issue become something much bigger? For many commentators, the dispute now appears to extend beyond simple travel logistics and into a long-running legal, political, and symbolic battle that has developed a life of its own. Balmoral occupies a unique place in this debate because it is not just another residence, it is one of the most heavily protected private royal estates in the country. The estate benefits from long-established security measures that remain in place regardless of which family members or guests happen to be staying there at any given time. Supporters of the Balmoral argument point out that the property already has extensive infrastructure, professional security, and a highly controlled environment. Travel arrangements could potentially be structured around private transportation and secure access routes, limiting exposure to public spaces. The estate itself covers thousands of acres, creating an environment where family members could spend time together without the need for public appearances or regular movement through crowded locations. Because of those factors, several royal commentators have argued that a short private visit is, at least in theory, achievable. Their view is that family members could travel directly to Balmoral, remain within the estate, avoid media exposure, and spend time together in a setting that already benefits from significant security protections. Under that scenario, the focus would be on a private family visit rather than a public royal event. This is where the discussion becomes especially interesting. If such a visit is realistically possible, as many commentators suggest, then attention naturally shifts to a different question. Why has it not happened? That question continues to generate speculation because neither side has publicly provided a detailed explanation. The lack of a clear answer has led some observers to believe that the challenge may involve more than travel arrangements alone. After all, practical logistics can often be solved when all parties are fully committed to finding a solution. Transportation plans, schedules, accommodations, and security measures are typically issues that can be worked through with enough cooperation and planning. When disagreements remain unresolved for years, some commentators argue that the sticking points may extend beyond logistics and into larger questions about trust, communication, legal disputes, and long-standing family tensions. Whether that assessment is accurate remains a matter of debate, but it helps explain why the Balmoral question continues to attract so much attention and spark intense discussion among royal watchers. According to several commentators, the heart of this dispute may not be a single family visit at all. Instead, they argue that the bigger issue is the long-term question of security and what kind of arrangement, if any, should exist going forward. From that perspective, the debate extends far beyond one trip and becomes part of a much larger institutional conversation. Some observers believe the real focus is not simply whether the grandchildren visit Balmoral this year. They suggest the broader goal is a lasting security framework that would apply whenever Harry travels to the United Kingdom in the future. Under this interpretation, the discussion is about establishing a precedent that could remain in place for years and potentially continue regardless of changes within the monarchy itself. Viewed through that lens, the family visit takes on a different meaning. Rather than being a standalone issue, it becomes one element within a much longer-running disagreement. Supporters of this view argue that the visit and the security debate are intertwined because both relate to larger questions about future arrangements, responsibilities, and institutional policy. That creates a difficult position for King Charles. Throughout the dispute, the palace has consistently maintained that security decisions are handled through established processes rather than personal preference. If that principle remains unchanged, then any shift could be interpreted as a departure from long-standing procedures. At the same time, maintaining the current approach can carry its own personal and emotional consequences for family relationships. Neither option appears particularly easy, which helps explain why silence has attracted so much attention from royal watchers. But beyond the legal arguments, the policy debates, and the endless headlines, there is another factor that many people find impossible to ignore: time. King Charles is 76 years old and continues to undergo treatment following his cancer diagnosis. Public updates from the palace have been carefully worded, emphasizing that he is responding to treatment while also making clear that the condition has not been described as being in remission. His workload has been adjusted, and officials have referred to a precautionary approach as he continues his duties. The timing adds a powerful emotional layer to the story. Charles received his diagnosis during the early period of his reign, a stage that would already have been demanding for any monarch. Taking on those responsibilities while managing a serious health challenge has only intensified public interest in every development surrounding both the king and his family relationships, making this dispute feel even more significant to many observers. Throughout his reign and during his treatment, King Charles has continued carrying out public duties with determination and composure. He has remained visible, continued attending engagements, and kept working despite the personal challenges he has faced. At the same time, he is also a grandfather, whose connection with two grandchildren living thousands of miles away has, according to widespread reporting, remained limited. Archie is 7, and Lilibet is 5. Those are important years in any family relationship. They are the ages when children begin forming lasting memories, building bonds, and developing a sense of where they fit within a wider family network. The moments that shape those connections are rarely the big public occasions. More often, they come from ordinary experiences, sharing time together, telling stories, playing games, and simply being present in each other's lives. Many commentators have pointed out that relationships built during these early years can have a lasting impact. When those opportunities are limited, the distance can become part of the family story as well. It is one of the reasons this situation attracts such strong public interest and emotional reactions from people following the royal family. Several royal biographers and longtime correspondents have suggested that Charles continues to care deeply about maintaining family connections despite years of public tensions. Reports have often described him as someone willing to leave channels of communication open, even during difficult periods. According to those accounts, he has generally been viewed as someone more inclined toward reconciliation than confrontation, preferring to keep the possibility of future repair alive, rather than shutting doors completely. Observers frequently contrast that approach with the public perception of Prince William's style. While commentators often describe William as more firm and decisive once he reaches a conclusion, Charles is commonly portrayed as someone who continues searching for common ground. Whether that characterization is entirely accurate is open to debate, but it remains a recurring theme in royal coverage. For many people watching from the outside, the king's health situation adds another layer of significance to these family dynamics. Serious illness naturally changes how people view time, relationships, and missed opportunities. It can make unresolved family issues feel more urgent and more emotionally charged, especially when future circumstances remain uncertain. This is why some commentators argue that the security dispute cannot be viewed only as a technical disagreement about travel arrangements. In their view, the issue has grown into something much larger, involving family relationships, institutional principles, and long-term questions about the future. They contend that the real debate is not simply about organizing a visit to Balmoral during a particular summer. Instead, they believe it centers on broader concerns surrounding security arrangements and how those decisions could shape future interactions for years to come. That perspective helps explain why the story continues to generate headlines, spark debate, and keep royal observers closely watching every new development. For many, the discussion is no longer just about one visit. It is about what happens next, and whether common ground can ever be found before time changes the equation even further. Some commentators argue that this dispute is really about setting a long-term precedent, not just arranging one family visit. The issue, as they see it, is whether a permanent security arrangement should exist for Harry in the future, regardless of which monarch is on the throne when those decisions are made. If such an arrangement were established, it could become part of the system inherited by future generations of the monarchy. Critics of that view argue it would be much harder to reverse later than to decline in the first place. That is why some observers believe the debate stretches far beyond a single trip and into a much bigger institutional question. Viewed through that lens, the proposed family visit becomes part of a larger negotiation rather than a standalone event. Charles has consistently been portrayed as supporting established processes when it comes to official decisions. That leaves him facing a difficult choice: maintain the institutional position and risk further family strain, or change course and face questions about precedent and procedure. Neither outcome is especially appealing. Silence becomes the third path. It does not solve the disagreement or move it closer to resolution. It simply keeps the situation frozen while time continues to pass. What makes the story more emotional is that Harry has previously spoken about seeing a more personal side of his father. In his memoir, he described watching Charles after the loss of Queen Elizabeth II and reflecting on how alone he appeared. Moments like that suggest a deeper understanding of the private emotions that often remain hidden behind the public role of a king. The gap between Harry's past understanding of his father's emotions and the current situation is one reason many observers see this dispute as more than a simple disagreement about travel arrangements or security logistics. Harry has often spoken with deep emotion about losing his mother at a young age. He has described how that loss shaped his life, the pain of unanswered questions, and the lasting impact of a parent being gone before a child is ready. Those themes have become a major part of his public story and the way he explains many of his decisions. Because of that, some commentators have pointed to what they see as a difficult parallel. Harry has spoken extensively about grief, time, and the reality that some opportunities disappear forever. Yet his relationship with his father now exists against the backdrop of an ongoing dispute that remains unresolved. For those observers, the comparison is hard to ignore. Charles is still here. He continues carrying out public duties while managing a serious health challenge, and reports have often suggested he remains open to communication. The separation between father and son is not one created by distance that cannot be changed. Instead, it is tied to disagreements and circumstances that have yet to be resolved. That contrast has become a major talking point among royal watchers. A son who has spoken so powerfully about the pain of losing a parent is now involved in a dispute with a father facing health challenges of his own. It is an uncomfortable comparison, but one that continues to fuel debate and strong opinions on all sides. The Thomas Markle aspect of the story also surfaces regularly and adds another complicated layer that many commentators believe cannot be ignored. Meghan's father, Thomas Markle, has been publicly estranged from his daughter for years and reportedly has no relationship with Archie and Lilibet. Many observers point to the parallel with King Charles and see a difficult question emerge. Why have both grandfathers ended up largely absent from the children's lives? Those who view the situations as separate argue that the causes are completely different. Thomas Markle's estrangement has been linked to highly public family disputes and media controversies, while the disagreement involving Charles centers on family dynamics, security concerns, and royal institutions. From that perspective, the two situations should not be treated as the same story. Others see a broader pattern. They note that both grandfathers have little or no relationship with the children, and that, regardless of the reasons, the result remains the same year after year. The adults continue their disputes, while the children have no real say in decisions that affect those relationships. That reality is what many commentators find most striking. At the same time, other developments have added to the conversation around Harry's public standing. Commentators have noted his absence from certain high-profile events, while figures such as David Beckham continue to receive major international attention. These discussions were already taking place before the latest headlines about security and family visits grabbed public attention. For some royal watchers, this is the bigger picture. Over the years, several relationships, partnerships, and connections that once surrounded the Sussex brand have changed, faded, or come to an end. Yet one part of the story remains impossible to ignore: family. As time moves forward and health concerns become a larger factor, many observers believe the real pressure on all sides is no longer coming from headlines, legal disputes, or public debates. It is coming from time itself, and time is the one thing nobody can negotiate with. At the center of this story are young children, a king managing cancer treatment, and a family relationship that remains unresolved while time keeps moving forward. The biggest challenge is that no one involved can control how much time is available for those relationships to develop and grow. As things stand, the security dispute remains unsettled. No confirmed meeting between Harry and King Charles has been announced, and there is no public indication that a breakthrough is imminent. Meanwhile, the children remain young, and the king's health situation continues to add urgency to the conversation. For many long-time royal observers, the frustrating part is the lack of visible progress. Reports occasionally emerge suggesting private discussions are happening behind the scenes, or that plans may be taking shape. Yet the publicly known facts continue to paint a different picture. The grandchildren are in California. The king is in the United Kingdom. Balmoral remains available each summer, and the years continue to pass. That reality is what many commentators focus on most. Some royal watchers interpret Charles' silence as an effort to avoid making the dispute even worse. They see it as the choice of a father who does not want a public confrontation that could make future reconciliation harder. Whether that view is correct or not, many agree that the human side of this story remains its most emotional and heartbreaking element. King Charles has faced enormous challenges in a remarkably short period of time. He began his reign while dealing with a cancer diagnosis, mourned the loss of his mother, and guided the transition of a monarchy shaped over decades. Through public controversies, major interviews, documentaries, and a best-selling memoir, he has largely avoided responding in public, choosing silence over escalation while the distance within the family continues. Whether that situation changes now depends on the decisions of the people involved. That is what makes this story so compelling and so difficult. Behind all the headlines, legal disputes, and royal drama are real family relationships, and time continues moving whether progress is made or not. Now we want to hear from you. Do you believe the security issue is the real obstacle, or is it part of a much bigger and longer-running dispute? And what about Balmoral? Do you think a private family visit could happen if both sides truly wanted it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next royal update.